What's going on, guys? Mr. Tecumseh here. It's been a while since I made a video. First, I'd like to start out by thanking everybody who's watched my videos, subscribed, and supported me. I just surpassed 1 million total views this month and hit about 13,000 views for this month. 1,013,000 for the lifetime of the channel and about 13,000 for this month. So I want to thank everybody for that. I've been running off the steam of a lot of my older videos because I haven't been making ones recently because I've been super busy and just, you know, trying to enjoy life right now. So I'm not really currently making videos, but I will get back into it eventually. Anyway, I wanted to go over this freebie I just picked up. It's a snapper. I believe it's from 1998 or 9. It's a series 19. It's an M. Let's see. M280919B, which means middle of the road. 28 cubic inch engine. Oh no, actually 28 inch deck. 9 horsepower is what they're claiming. But that was one of the things I wanted to show real quick. So here's the engine, right? It shows 9 horsepower, but it's not a 9 horsepower because Briggs never actually made a 9 horsepower. If you look right here, and this is the dead giveaway for people. If you can see that. See how it says model 28? 28 cubic inches is 12 horsepower. I happen to have a cover from one where it is actually marked as, well, they're claiming 12 and a half, but it's a 12. Also 28 cubic inch. For those who don't know, Briggs and several other of the engine manufacturers have been sued now, as far as I know, 3 times for typically overrating horsepower on their engines. They were sued in 2007, right before Tecumseh went out of business. Multi-million-dollar class action lawsuit because they were playing games with the horsepower. Like, for instance, they were rating the newer overhead valve Briggs anywhere from like 14 to 17, and on the Tecumseh winter engines they were rating them at 8, 8.5, 9, 9.5. There was no difference until you actually got to 10 horsepower. When you got to 10 horsepower, you went from 318 cc to 358 cc. Used the exact same block, it just had a larger bore, piston, and rings. That's it. Otherwise, they were the same engine. So yes, those were actually 40 cc larger. Now, this is coming out of the era when they were playing the game, but they were doing it the opposite direction. They were rating a lot of these engines lower and then putting the same engine on another machine that they were charging more for, that would have said, you know, 12 horsepower, okay? But as far as Briggs went, okay, I know they made the 8 horsepower, which is the 19 cubic inch, 318 cc. Now, I know with Tecumseh, they also made the 10, which was basically the same engine with the larger bore and piston, and it was 40 cc higher at 358. Briggs may have made a 10, using the 8 horsepower block and had a larger bore and piston. I can't remember, that goes way back. But what I do know is they did make an actual 11 horsepower. It was 399 cc. They stopped producing that engine in 1989. Okay, and when they did that, they just went ahead and made these engines. It was cheaper. Just make these engines and slap different horsepower ratings on them. So on these older machines, you'll see sometimes where they're rated lower than they actually are. That's not, it's saying 9. That's actually 12. It's actually a 12 horsepower. So that's a big difference, because a 9 horsepower, 8 horsepower, which really exists, is 318 cc. This is 465 cc, or 28 cubic inch, because that's how they used to do it, by cubic inch. Now they do everything by cc's, foot-pounds. Sometimes they still say gross horsepower, or you know, you rarely see cubic inch anymore. I mean, Briggs probably still uses that in their model system, but everything's basically standardized to go by cc's, which equates to foot-pounds torque, and then occasionally you'll still see gross horsepower. All right, they were sued in 2007. They were sued again in like 2009, which I didn't know they were sued twice. I thought that they, you know, got sued once, and I know that they were that even now, even at, because when they got sued, when they all got sued the first time, that killed horsepower as the gold standard for rating engines. They eliminated it, and they went to foot-pounds torque and cc's. Okay. But what I did notice is, even on the older Toro recyclers that had the Quantums, when they switched to that other rating system, the first of them came out saying 6.5 foot-pounds torque. Then about 2 years later, they were saying 6.75 foot-pounds torque. Another year or two later after that, they were saying 7.0 foot-pounds torque. And then at the end of the Quantums, they were saying 7.25 foot-pounds of torque. Those were all 190 cc engines. Their actual horsepower rating was 5.5 horsepower. Okay, so 6.5 foot-pounds torque, it was probably closer to accurate. But the only change they made was to the foot-pound torque rating on those machines, to, you know, try to make it seem like they updated the models. They didn't do anything else to them. And then finally, when the Quantum went out of production, which was the last of the flathead walk-behind mowers, they moved on to the newer overhead valve. Most of the Toros, which Home Depot don't even sell them anymore, at least not mine, because they're pushing battery so hard. It's like 75% of the stuff on the shelf over there is battery. But anyway, when they were still selling the recycler, they had the overhead valve, the newer overhead valve engine, which was 163 cc. Okay, and they were still rating those at 7.25 foot-pounds of torque at 163 cc. And then, of course, they go by the RPM. Now, yeah, they can be upped and lowered a little bit to drop or raise the horsepower, but for the most part, they, you know, on a walk behind, they're set around 2,900 to 3,100. On these, max 3,600, right? So I just want people to realize that you can't go by horsepower on a lot of this stuff, because it's not accurate. Okay, they purposely labeled them to fool the consumer to pay more when they were new retail. Okay, when it was actually the identical engine. All right, so people need to be aware of that. I had a conversation with a fella about a week ago on one of the forums on Facebook, and you know, he wanted to argue with me that they weren't trying to mislead the public. It's been documented, okay, 3 times now: 07, 08, 09, and then again, I read as recent as 2019, they got sued again. So they don't learn, or they just don't care because they're making so much money doing it that it's paying the legal fees plus some. So you never go by, you know, foot-pounds or horsepower. You go by the cc, all right, or the cubic inch, and it'll tell you exactly what engine it is. So in this case, that's actually a 12 horse, not 9, which Briggs never even actually made a 9, so it's just a made-up number. They made an 8, 10, 11, and a 12. Okay, and then the 13 that they made, the 13 flathead, that one had a larger screen. Okay, and the cover had an angle to it, so that one may have drew in a little bit more air, which raised the horsepower one level. I can't say for a fact to that, but they had the 12 and 13 before they came out with the overhead valves. Then the overhead valves started showing up, and they were going anywhere from 14, 15, 16, 16 and a half, you know, in betweens. Okay, and they were all either at that time, I think, still 465 cc. The newer ones that they were doing it on with the plastic covers were 500 cc. And then for a while they were making that even larger 540 cc, and those were being rated anywhere from 19 to 21 horsepower, gross horsepower. Or if they used a foot-pound torque rating, anywhere from 19 to 21. So you have to be weary of that. Now this engine is a 98. The machine is either a 98 or 99, but the guy who I just picked it up from doesn't believe it's the original engine. And I can probably also tell because this had electric start designation. There's no electric starter here. The flywheel under here doesn't have the teeth. It's just recoil. Of course, I have flywheels, so I can add the electric start. No problem. Also, the wiring isn't hooked up. I guess the wiring was different. And the one fatal sin I see here is they put a Nicky 6 carburetor on there versus a Walbra on a flathead. Probably works, maybe, but it's supposed to have the Walbra. Because the Nickies, those were for the larger displacement overhead valve motors. I think you can get away with it, but I don't know. If it runs all right, I'll let it ride. If it doesn't, I'll throw a Walbro on, because that's proper. But here, I'll show you guys the difference real quick between an actual 11 and a 12. Here right here is the 11. This is an actual 11, 399 cc. If you notice, it's smaller. The head, you know, the cylinder part of it's shorter. Screen smaller, right? And well, see, this is Craftsman, so sometimes it's all right here. 89 last year was built, and this is 27 cubic inch. Nope, 25, excuse me, 25 cubic inch. The 8s were 19. If they made a 10, that would have been 21. The 11s were 25, which they stopped producing. The 12 and 13 are 28. And then when you get into the newer overhead valves that are 500 cc, those are 31 cubic inch. And then the biggest one, which I think they stopped producing because it was such junk and they were throwing rods all the time, was a 33 cubic inch single cylinder. And then you get into your twin cylinders, and there was only actually 2 of them, but of course they went all wild with the horsepower ratings on them too. There's one right there. I can't show the top of it right now, or can I? It's claiming 22. I can't get to the model, but for the V-twin, there's only 2. It was 656 cc, I believe, was the lower rated one, and then 725 cc was the one that was larger. So there's only 2. So, you know, they could have been rated anywhere from 18 all the way to like 25, I think I've seen. All right. So, but anyway, it's been documented. They proved that they were playing games. Okay. You know, later that they were doing it where they were overrating them. which was a real big problem. And back in the day, which I only saw one other time on a tractor that I took apart at the curb. I actually made a video of it. It was rated at, I believe, 11, and that was also a 12. Anyway, if I throw a 12 horsepower cover on there, that's a 12 horsepower engine, because that's true. So just be wary of that, because, you know, these horsepower ratings aren't accurate. And they're still playing that game. And they've been sued 3 times already. Not just Briggs. Tecumseh was too. Tecumseh then went out of business. Filed bankruptcy in 2008, went out of business. They're done. Kohler got hit too. And Kohler was one of the ones I noticed was more honest about it. But they got hit too. Those are the big 3 I know got hit for sure. Briggs, Tecumseh, and Kohler. I don't know if Kohler was involved with the first one, but I know Briggs was involved with all 3. Of the 3 I know, and I don't know if they've been sued again since. But like I said, they either just don't care, they don't learn, or they're making so much money playing these games that it's covering their legal fees plus some, so they're still making out. That's probably what's going on, because they just keep doing it. So anyway, what am I going to do with this machine? It's missing its gas tank, all right? It's a little bit beat. Like, it looks like they rigged up the steering, because I don't think that's even supposed to be up front like that. What else? It's got... I mean, the seat cover they put on it at one point, you know, to go over the original seat, wasn't bad. I can't feel if there's any actual tears in it. Yeah, there is. That's probably why. But that's all sun faded. This is a little jacked up. Wiring's not hooked up correctly. It doesn't have the fuel tank. It would have bolted right here. You know, on this one, I guess it would have, it probably would have had the bracket, and then the tank slides down in. I mean, you know, if I really wanted to, I have a gas tank that I'm pretty sure would bolt right here onto it. Also, these bagger handles, they're jacked up. The one's been welded and it's cracked. This one's about to fall off. Not that that's the end of the world. I would, if I was to save this machine, I would just remove them. But they also do assist you when you put this machine up into its service position on its ass end to get up under there to service the deck and friction disc and whatnot. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Should I try and save it, or, you know, take what's good? The motor. Motors are worth about $300. At least they were. Now, this year, with the economy the way it is, things have been dropping. I'm sure everybody who's into this has been feeling the pinch. Everything is way more expensive in the store. People have far less money to spend. So I know I haven't been getting as much for stuff that I sold in the past for, you know, even last year, still top dollar. But we were running off the steam of a previous administration's economy. The good news is, in about 6 months, we should be heading back into a new administration, and things will start to turn around. But yeah, with inflation at 25%, mowers that used to be $399 that are $500, you know, paint that used to be $5.99 or less, that's up to like $7-8. You know, just those 2 examples alone. And then, you know, you go to sell something, like, just say, for example, push mowers, say a Toro recycler, right? One of those Toro recyclers, self-propelled. I was getting $300 for those, no problem. This year, I think the highest I got for one was $280, and that was, you know, hard to get. On average, $250. Tractors, a couple $100 less. So the steam from the last administration ran out. We're in the new administration's economy now. You would have think you would have thought that even with pumping all that extra money into the economy during COVID, that by now things would have balanced out. They haven't. And also the manufacturers right now know they can get away with it. But when, someone else comes in with new policies, economic policies specifically, I believe, next year things will start to get a little bit better. Not that I'm complaining a little bit, but it's been a little bit tougher. So what do you guys think I should do? Should I try to save it or should I just part it out? Engine, good rims and tires, good deck, a couple other pieces, because I don't really, and plus this is jacked up, so I'd have to get this or fix this nice, find a tank, then I've got this going on, those things broken, and the seat, I think this one's gonna get parted out. I've got nicer ones. I've had a few snappers. In fact, I had one that was from 1979. It was mint. The guy used it like one season and then put it, did the end of year maintenance and put it in his garage up until like, what was that, 3 years ago? And I pulled the thing out. That had a real 7. They made 7s at one time too, way back in the day. I have one in there. I've shown it before. So, but either way, good motor. Oh, yeah, just a show. It's got compression. So, with a carb clean, it might not even need a carb clean. I don't know. Run a line to it with, a temporary gravity-fed tank and see what happens. If not, carb clean. If not, throw a Walbro on there. Whatever. But it was worth it just for the motor. Right now I'm working on a 2006 LT3000, and it looks like it was mowed once. Like it basically just rolled out of Sears and it was mowed with once. It didn't have its deck, so I luckily I have decks for those. I primed it last night. I just got to give it the top coat. And maybe I'll make a quick video on showing that. It's probably the cleanest 18-year-old Craftsman from that era that I ever had, as far as the chassis part of it. It didn't have a deck, not the end of the world. So, came with 3 push mowers. So that's what's been going on. So I've been just keeping super busy, but also at the same time trying to find time to enjoy life, sporting events, beach, and just taking it easy a bit, especially over here. We were in a heat wave for like 3 weeks straight, and it made it pretty tough. We finally just came out of that heat wave, which definitely helped because it was rough. But eventually I plan to move to a climate where it will be warm in the winter, but yet doesn't get too hot in the summer. And the ocean still stays warm enough to go in January and February and come out and not be cold, and the water isn't cold. Right now, or it was, hot as hell up here in New Jersey in the Northeast area, but the ocean temperature is still cold. It's got something to do with the I forget, something to do with the jet stream, whatever, going on this year. The bay's nice and warm, but the ocean's cold still, so you can't really enjoy it because you go out on the beach, sit in the sun. You want to go in the ocean to cool down, but you don't want to go in there freezing. You want to go in there and be comfortable. So that's what's going on. So, but on the West Coast, it stays about 65 degrees, where I plan on going eventually. Average year-round temperature of 65, 70 degrees. 65 in the winter, and like mid-70s, upper 70s in the summer. You might get the occasional 1 or 2 90-degree day in August. So, and it's for me, the weather, that type of temperature is a huge mood enhancer because I can't stand the cold anymore. And summer's okay as long as it doesn't get too hot. You know, anything under 90, 85 in the shade, that's perfect. But once you get up into like 95, especially in the direct sun, that takes a toll. That's taking a toll on me. When I was younger, I used to do it no problem and bounce back like that. But now, it just gets to be too much. And I got to take breaks. So that's what's going on there. So I just felt like giving you guys an update, letting you know what's going on, where I've been, what I'm up to, and the information about these engines. And again, thank you for the 1 million views. I think I'm at like 2,300 subscribers. So if you haven't seen my videos and haven't subscribe. That helps. You know, the more of that I get, the more it'll keep me motivated to start making more videos in the future again. But for right now, I'm on basically a break. I felt the need to share this information. So you will find, like I said, on these older ones, where they were actually underrated, but they were still using it to play the game, because, you know, then on another machine, they would have one where it actually said 12. So they were still playing the game, but they were underrating some of these engines. You will never see that again. Now they're all overrated. So they were playing the game, but they did it the opposite direction, which is funny, you know, in a sense. Why not, I guess different models, but why, you know, just put a 12 on it and make one model with a 12? I don't know. But that's what happened. They discontinued the 11, and it was cheaper for them to just build these 12s and then throw different horsepowers on them. Say it's 9, 10, 11, 12, 12 and a half. Then you go into the 13, which I said has the larger screen and the curve on the cover. So I guess, you know, with that screen being a little larger, bringing in more air, that actually probably does make a difference, because there is an actual difference there, but there is no difference between these. And these recoil 12s that you can also add the electric start to are pretty rare. You know, most of them were on tractors where they were just electric start, so it wouldn't have had this recoil. And this is the older style one with the ratcheting clutch. They eventually moved on to a cheaper one where it just had the cup, and the recoil had the starter dogs that came out and pulled it. This was the better one. So, but I've seen a couple, not many. I have one in my shed that I haven't used and I planned on keeping, because it's recoil and electric start, 12 horse flathead, and these were the greatest. This stuff came from the era when Briggs was making everything basically industrial grade, okay? Now the stuff that they build is basically all crap, except for the Vanguard line. And I would argue some of these industrial grade motors are still better than those Vanguards in a lot of respects, okay? And plus, most of the residential grade stuff's made in China, except for the Vanguard line, which they're making in Georgia and one other state, Statesboro, Georgia, and one other state right next to it. Maybe I don't know if it's Arkansas, whatever. So they're made in the USA. Earlier Vanguards were made in Japan, and it was Daihatsu that was actually making them for Briggs, and then Briggs was just putting their name on them. Those are good engines too. They're Japanese motors. I only had, I think, one of them. But yeah, I just wanted to go over that. So there you go. You've got an engine here that's actually 12 horsepower. It says 9. You know, so they played the game, but they played it backwards. They were actually underrating stuff. Now, and for a while, until they got, you know, the first lawsuit that removed horsepower, they were all over the place, you know? Now, they keep it within reason for the most part, but they're still playing the game. And I don't know if they've been sued yet again, even more recently than 2019, but I know it was a multi-million-dollar class action in 2007. They got hit again in 2008-9. I think the Comps was right at a picture. And then they got hit again in 2019. Did they get hit again? Will they get hit again? Because before that, I knew about the one in 08 because when I started picking up machines earlier, you know, when I first started getting into this, it was always horsepower. And then I started noticing horsepower wasn't there anymore. It was saying foot-pounds. So that's what made me interested in why is this saying this now. And that's when I found out they got sued the first time. And I used to say to people, I said, I'm not surprised, because, you know, now they're playing games with the foot-pound torque ratings. And I said, I'm not surprised they haven't been sued again. Well, lo and behold, they did 2 more times already, as recent at least as 2019, maybe even sooner. But the guy, like I said, the one guy wanted to argue that they weren't trying to deceive the public. But it's on the record. It's public information. It's out there. You know, they were found liable for misleading the public on the horsepower rating. So that's why, if people wonder why horsepower rating's gone as the standard, that's the reason. And also, when you know, these people, you get a lot of people that don't know, and they'll post an issue about their engine and say, yeah, I've got this, say, 15 horsepower so-and-so with this issue. And then, you know, it's really just a 14. You know, all you gotta do is look at the CC, or on Briggs, they still use the cubic inch, because they were using cubic inch since, God, forever. Because, you know, that was the American standard measurement. You know, CC's is metric, cubic centimeter. So, but now it's, you know, you can equate it. So 28 cubic inch is 465 cc, which is 12 horsepower. If it was foot-pounds torque, I don't know, because these went out of production before that occurred. But on the 500 cc's, right, those are 31 cubic inch, and they're rated anywhere from 16 to 18. So I would guess it would be an actual 16, because you're saying, yeah, every 40 cc's is a 2 horsepower jump approximately. Okay, depending on certain variables, RPM, 2 cycle, 4 cycle. So every 40 cc's basically is another 2 horsepower jump. All right, so 8, 318, 10, 358. Could be the same engine, just a larger bore and piston. 12, 465. So you went from 365 up another 80 cc, and that's 2 more horsepower. So yeah, it's basically every 40 cc. All right, so I just felt like sharing that information so the public's informed on it. And again, let me know what you think. I think I'm going to be taking this, you know, get this engine running, take the engine, a few things, like I said, and part it out, because I've got a ton of other stuff to deal with. You know, if it still had its fuel tank wired properly, which that I could have corrected anyway. These weren't broken. That piece wasn't broken. This wasn't jacked up, you know, then I'd probably do it. And the battery would have sat in here. Let's see, where's the terminals for it? They're there. Yeah, would have sat in here. I mean, I have seen on some of the older snappers, like that 78 I had, the tank was mounted to the side. And on these, I think this one still had the sheet, the metal plate, and the tanks, you know, went right behind here. Was there one other version tank? I don't know, but like I said, I do have a tank that, with these out of the way, would bolt right here if I wanted to add it. So I have a tank, okay? And like I said, this I could probably, you know, clean up a little better. You know, if I wanted to put a different seat on, or make this, put a new seat cover on, because this is handmade, I could. But then you get into this stuff that's jacked up. You know, this is jacked up. These are jacked up, which these can just be removed. You just wouldn't be able to put a bag unless somebody bought new ones. This would have been the original muffler. So this is what got taken from the other engine. But if it is indeed a different engine. Oh, one other thing to note. See how these ones say power built, whereas this one says IC? Typically, when they say power built, that means it just has a regular aluminum sleeved bore. If it's IC, industrial commercial, it's got a cast iron sleeve. So the bore is cast iron. So they hold up better, because you're talking cast iron versus aluminum. The aluminum bores are going to get scraped up faster, especially due to lack of maintenance, and they're just going to wear out faster than a cast iron sleeve. But even, you know, these aluminum bore ones, like I said, they're still far better than the crap they make now. The cast iron sleeve ones, you'll see them go 30, 35. I don't know what the oldest ones are. 40 year. We're coming up on 40 years on some of these. I mean, mine's 29. And this, let's see, my uncle had one from 91, so that thing was already 33. So, and I think I've had, the earliest one I've ever had was 90. And the one thing to note, once you get back to 90, 91, instead of them having the Walbro, they had the one-piece flow jet carburetor that I guess Briggs made. And then Briggs stopped making those carburetors too, and then just had Walbro do it. And then later, when the overhead valves came, they also started using Nicky. You started seeing Nicky and Walbro. Now, for the most part, it's all Nicky. They're okay, all right, but the Walbros were better, all right? They're just better, because when you got to service one of them and it's got that stupid gasket, and everybody knows what I'm talking about, that stupid form gasket. If it gets deformed, or that O-ring gets deformed, that's it. You got to order a kit, or you've got to find another carburetor and take pieces off of it, or swap the carburetor. With the Walbros, they're pretty much, unless they had gas sitting in them for like 10 years, they're basically salvageable. You may need a new needle and seat, and in the meantime, you can put a fuel shutoff valve on, but a Walbro will almost always come back. These Nickies, you can get them to come back, but it's all plastic shit inside of there, so they just don't make things the way they used to. That's the way, you know, it is. So it is what it is. And unless you buy something commercial, because the commercial grade stuff still has, you know, commercial grade engines. You know, the quality of the machines built like the quality of these machines, and a lot of the older tractors were built. The stuff they make now, engines and the machines, are crap. But, you know, it doesn't really matter anyway, because we're heading towards battery. It's gonna replace the majority of gas. I just got an Ego battery-powered mower the other day, and it was the first one I had to fix. So I figured, you know, it's coming. Might as well embrace it. On those Egos, the handlebars fold down. There's safety switches in them. Well, one or two of them went bad, so I just eliminated them and wired it straight. So it still had, you know, it still had the switch that you had to press and then pull the bail. So it's still safe. They just went a little bit overkill with the safeties, and I just eliminated that and sold it. So that was the first battery operated piece of equipment I fixed. So it's coming. Might as well, you know, be able to fix them, because if you can't, what are you gonna do when gas is phased out? You know, I mean, yeah, they'll be around for a while until they're all broken down and gone, but they're changing. So you either change with the times and you know, embrace it, or you know, you find something else to do. So my opinion on the battery, they're definitely not as powerful. They're a pain in the butt, because, you know, when the battery dies, you gotta either charge it or throw another battery in and then put the one on the charger while you're waiting. Whereas with gas, you run out of gas, you just fill the tank back up, 30 seconds, back to it. And they cut better. I don't care what anybody says. I've seen I've seen the way they cut. All right, they don't cut nice and even. They don't go through really tall grass. They just don't have the power to do it. Okay, and then they don't last as long. Components break down faster. the battery goes. Then you guys spend $150, $200 on a new battery, you know, stuff like that. So, are they better? No. Are they quieter? Yeah. That's the one nice thing about them. They're quiet. You know, the Ego that I had, he said he bought it in 2017. The mower itself was still in great shape. All right. The mower and the motor were still good. The circuit board was still good because it was, you know, it uses a circuit board to know when, you know, if you want to put the lights on, which switches are on, if the handles are folded up and down, all that's, you know, different stuff. But, you know, they had issues with the safety switches failing, the wiring getting kinked up and not making good connection when you fold the handlebars down on them. So I looked into it and it was an easy fix for me. But it didn't come with the battery, so I had to get under there and apply juice to it by plugging in 2 plugs with exposed wire and putting my jump pack to it on both ends to see that the motor's still, to verify that the motor was still good. And once I knew the motor was still good, then I knew it wasn't turning on from the handlebar, but it was, you know, the motor was kicking on. That's when I knew the problem was up in the handlebars. And it was either 1 or 2 of the safety switches. The one for folding, pushing the handle to make it shorter, and the one to fold it. 1 or 2 of them had failed, so I eliminated them. But, you know, as long as, before they had all that, you had the button and the bail, and that's more than enough safety, because you're not gonna mow with the handle folded up. You're not gonna mow with the handle folded down unless you're a little kid. Then actually it would make sense for height, but it has the height, it had the height settings too anyway. So, but the older ones only had the button and the bail. That's all you needed. That still worked and it turned on. So I sold that without the battery for a decent amount. It came from almost the same place that this did. All right, that's enough for me today. It's not really a how-to or fixing anything. It was just more of a explanation of the situation here, especially the engines. And again, thank you, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one, whenever that might be. But I will eventually get back into it. All right, take care, guys.